The image of Saddam Hussein's statue being pulled down in Baghdad's Firdos Square on April 9, 2003, remains etched in the world's memory. This moment was broadcast globally, symbolizing not just the fall of a dictator, but the hope for a new beginning for the Iraqi people. The statue's collapse was a powerful visual metaphor for the end of an era of oppression and the dawn of a new chapter in Iraq's history. This dramatic event marked the symbolic end of Saddam's brutal regime and the beginning of a new era in Iraq. The streets of Baghdad were filled with scenes of jubilation, as Iraqis celebrated the promise of freedom and the end of decades of fear and repression. The US-led invasion, launched just weeks earlier, had promised liberation and democracy. American troops were greeted as liberators, and there was a palpable sense of optimism that Iraq could finally rebuild and move forward. However, the toppling of the statue belied the long and complicated history between Saddam Hussein and America, a relationship marked by both cooperation and conflict. Over the years, the US had alternately supported and opposed Saddam, reflecting the shifting geopolitical interests of the time. Saddam's Iraq, under the iron grip of the Ba'ath Party, had long been a source of regional instability. His regime was characterized by aggressive military posturing, internal purges, and a ruthless suppression of any opposition. The dictator's brutal suppression of internal dissent, his military ambitions, and his suspected pursuit of weapons of mass destruction made him a prime target for US intervention in the post-9/11 world. The fear of WMDs falling into the wrong hands was a driving force behind the invasion. Yet the decision to invade Iraq was not a sudden one. It was the result of years of policy debates, intelligence assessments, and strategic calculations. The US government had been grappling with the Iraq problem for decades. It was the culmination of decades of fraught interactions, shifting alliances, and missed opportunities. The relationship between the US and Iraq had been a roller coaster of diplomatic engagements, economic sanctions, and military confrontations. Understanding the dynamics between Saddam and America is crucial to grasping the forces that shaped the Middle East in the late 20th and early 21st centuries. This complex interplay influenced not just Iraq, but the entire region. This essay delves into this complex relationship, examining the lead-up to the 2003 invasion, the invasion itself, and its tumultuous aftermath. It seeks to provide a comprehensive understanding of the events that led to the fall of Saddam and the subsequent chaos that engulfed Iraq. It explores Saddam's public and private views on the United States, drawing upon newly available digitized Iraqi records and the Pentagon's Harmony database. These sources offer a rare glimpse into the mindset of one of the most enigmatic leaders of the modern era. By unraveling this history, we gain a clearer understanding of how Saddam's regime and its subsequent collapse have reverberated through the region, contributing to the rise of authoritarianism and shaping the geopolitical landscape we face today. The legacy of Saddam's rule and the US invasion continues to influence the Middle East, with lasting implications for global politics. Saddam Hussein's path to power was paved with violence and ruthlessness. Born in 1937 near the city of Tikrit, a small village in the heart of Iraq, Saddam's early life was marked by hardship and struggle. He rose through the ranks of the Ba'ath Party, a pan-Arab socialist movement that seized power in Iraq in 1968. His political acumen and ruthless tactics quickly set him apart. Saddam, a shrewd and ambitious operator, consolidated his control over the party and the country, becoming president in 1979. His rise to power was marked by strategic alliances and the elimination of rivals. His rule was characterized by brutal repression, enforced disappearances, and the systematic targeting of ethnic minorities, particularly the Kurds in the north. Entire villages were destroyed, and thousands were displaced. Saddam's paranoia extended to perceived threats within his own government, leading to purges and executions. No one was safe from his suspicion, not even his closest allies. To maintain his grip on power, he cultivated a cult of personality, portraying himself as the protector of the Arab world. His image was omnipresent, from posters to statues, reinforcing his dominance. While Saddam's domestic policies were marked by repression, his foreign policy was defined by a combination of aggression and opportunism. He sought to expand Iraq's influence in the region through military might. He launched a devastating war against Iran in 1980, a conflict that lasted for 8 years and claimed hundreds of thousands of lives. The war drained Iraq's resources and left a lasting impact on its people. Throughout the 1980s, the United States, wary of the Islamic Revolution in Iran, provided support to Iraq, including intelligence sharing and military aid. This support was crucial in sustaining Saddam's war efforts. This period of tacit cooperation, however, masked the underlying tensions and mistrust that would later define the relationship between Saddam and the West. The alliance was one of convenience, not trust. The U.S.-Iraqi relationship has been characterized by a series of contradictions and shifting alliances, reflecting the complex and often turbulent nature of international politics. In the 1980s, the United States saw Saddam as a bulwark against Iranian expansionism, a strategic ally in a region fraught with instability. The Reagan administration provided Iraq with intelligence assistance, including satellite imagery that helped Saddam's forces target Iranian troops, showcasing the extent of U.S. involvement in the conflict. However, even during this period of cooperation, the U.S. was aware of Saddam's human rights abuses, which included widespread torture, executions, and suppression of political dissent, and his use of chemical weapons against both Iranian soldiers and his own Kurdish citizens, actions that drew international condemnation and highlighted the brutal nature of his regime. The 1990 Iraqi invasion of Kuwait marked a turning point in U.S.-Iraqi relations, shifting the dynamic from cautious cooperation to outright confrontation. Saddam's aggression, which he justified as a response to Kuwaiti economic warfare, was met with swift international condemnation, uniting global powers against Iraq's actions, and a U.S.-led military intervention that liberated Kuwait in 1991, a decisive operation known as Operation Desert Storm. The Gulf War reshaped the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East, altering alliances and power structures in the region, and left Saddam's regime severely weakened, struggling to maintain control over a country ravaged by war and economic hardship. Despite his defeat, Saddam remained in power, clinging to his authoritarian rule while facing international sanctions and internal unrest, which only grew as the decade progressed. The 1990s saw a period of tense standoff between Iraq and the United States, punctuated by U.S. and British airstrikes in response to Iraqi violations of no-fly zones imposed after the Gulf War, further straining relations. The United States also sought to contain Saddam's regime through economic sanctions, which had a devastating impact on the Iraqi people, leading to widespread poverty and suffering, but failed to dislodge Saddam from power as he continued to defy international pressure and maintain his grip on Iraq. The September 11, 2001, terrorist attacks on the United States ushered in a new era of American foreign policy. President George W. Bush declared a war on terror and identified Iraq, along with Iran and North Korea, as part of an axis of evil. The Bush administration accused Saddam of harboring terrorists and developing weapons of mass destruction, posing a grave threat to the United States and its allies. The Bush administration's claims about Iraq's WMD program and its alleged links to al-Qaeda were highly controversial and later proven to be false. However, they formed the basis for the U.S. case for war. Despite international opposition, the United States, supported by a coalition of the willing, launched the invasion of Iraq in March 2003. The decision to invade Iraq was based on flawed intelligence and driven by a combination of factors, including the desire to remove a perceived threat, reshape the Middle East, and secure access to oil resources. The invasion was also fueled by the neoconservative ideology that permeated the Bush administration, which advocated for the use of American military power to promote democracy and freedom around the world. The invasion began at dawn, catching everyone off guard. The skies were filled with the roar of engines, and the ground shook with the force of explosions. Within hours, the landscape was transformed into a battlefield. In the aftermath, the once thriving city lay in ruins. Survivors wandered through the rubble, searching for loved ones and salvaging what little they could. The air was thick with smoke and the cries of the wounded. Rebuilding would take years, and the scars of this day would never fully heal. But amidst the devastation, there was a glimmer of hope. Communities came together, showing resilience and determination to rise from the ashes. As history has shown us time and again, even in the darkest times, the human spirit endures. As we delve deeper, we find that the invasion of Iraq opened a Pandora's box of unforeseen consequences. The region, already a tinderbox, became even more unstable. Sectarian violence surged, and new extremist groups emerged from the chaos. The question remains, was the price of intervention worth the cost? To understand the motivations behind Saddam Hussein's actions, we must step into his mind. Saddam saw himself as a modern-day Nebuchadnezzar, a ruler destined to restore Iraq to greatness. His paranoia, however, led to brutal purges and a reign of terror. What drove this man to such extremes? The echoes of Saddam's authoritarian rule still resonate today. His legacy of fear and control left deep scars on the Iraqi psyche. Even after his fall, the specter of authoritarianism lingers, influencing the political landscape. How does a nation heal from decades of dictatorship? Reflecting on the Iraq War, we must ask ourselves, what lessons have we learned? The complexities of intervention, the unpredictable aftermath, and the human cost all serve as stark reminders. History, it seems, has no easy answers. How will these lessons shape our future decisions?
Du meine Arbeit für richtig hältst, ob du glaubst, dass ich fleißig gewesen bin, dass ich gearbeitet habe, dass ich mich in diesen Jahren für dich eingesetzt habe, dass ich anständig meine Zeit verwendet habe.